The first call comes in at 2:17 a.m. It's short, calm, almost procedural. A man gives his name, his address, and says he thinks something is wrong. He says he feels dizzy. He says he might collapse. The dispatcher follows protocol, asks about breathing, about pain, about whether anyone else is in the house. The man answers clearly, too clearly. No panique, no sluving, no confusion. The call lasts 1 minute and 12 seconds. Paramedics are dispatched. When they arrive, the man is already dead. At first, there is nothing unusual about the case. Middle-aged male. No signs of forced entry. No obvious trauma. The official cause of death is listed as cardiac arrest pending autopsy. The call is archived, tagged, and filed like thousands of others. A routine emergency. Another data point in a system built to process crises quickly and forget them even faster. But 12 hours later, the phone rings again. The same number, same caller ID, same voice. This time, the dispatcher answers without hesitation. The man introduces himself again. Same name, same address. He sounds exactly the same as before. Same cadence, same pauses, same calm tone. He says, "I think something went wrong last time." The dispatcher freezes for half a second. She checks the screen. The address is flagged. The case is closed. The person associated with this number is deceased. She asks him to repeat his name. He does. She asks if he knows what day it is. He answers correctly. She asks why he's calling. He says, "They already found me." There is no distress in his voice. No confusion. Just a statement, delivered like a fact. The dispatcher disconnects the call and reports it as a technical anomaly. A glitch. Caller ID spoofing. Maybe a prank. The system logs the attempt, but no units are dispatched. According to procedure, the case is already resolved. 37 minutes later, the phone rings again. This time, the call is routed to a different operator. Different shift. Different desk. The voice is the same. The man says, "You're not the one I spoke to earlier." He pauses, then adds, "That's fine. You'll do." The operator asks him where he is. He gives the same address. The operator tells him that address is marked as a confirmed death scene. The man responds, "I know. That's where they left me." At this point, the system automatically flags the call as a misuse of emergency services. But something prevents it from being dropped. The audio quality is perfect. No packet loss. No routing errors. No indication of spoofing. The call behaves like a legitimate emergency, even though it shouldn't exist. An internal supervisor listens in. The man begins describing details that were never part of the original call. He mentions the position of his body when he was found. He mentions the way his left hand was curled inward. He mentions the paramedic who pronounced him dead by name. None of this information was released publicly. Some of it wasn't even finalized in the report yet. The supervisor orders the call terminated and instructs IT to trace the signal. The trace fails. Not partially, completely. The system cannot identify an originating tower. It cannot identify a network. The call appears to exist entirely inside the emergency infrastructure, as if it never traveled through a carrier at all. Over the next 3 days, the calls continue. They always come from the same number. They always sound the same. They're always routed to different operators. And each time, the man reveals something new. He knows the results of his autopsy before they are signed. He knows which evidence photos were flagged for review. He knows which officer argued that the death might not be natural. One operator reports that during the call, the man says, "You should ask me how long I've been here." When she asks what he means, he responds, "Longer than the record says." At this point, the department escalates the case. The calls are reclassified, not as a prank, not as a malfunction, but as an internal systems issue. Access to the recordings is restricted. Only supervisors and analysts are allowed to listen. The official explanation becomes simpler with each retelling: corrupted audio files, misattributed timestamps, overlapping recordings from older cases. But there is a problem. Every recording is timestamped after the man's death, and every call ends the same way. A pause, exactly 3 seconds long. No background noise, no breathing, then a single sentence, spoken calmly, before the line disconnects. They haven't finished yet. No one can explain what that means. But on the 4th day, the calls stop. Not because the number goes silent, but because the system changes how it handles them. Without any public announcement, a quiet update is pushed to the emergency call routing software. Calls from closed cases are now automatically filtered before reaching an operator. No alert, no notification, just a new rule. After the update, the number calls again, multiple times, but no one hears it, except the logs show the calls were received. They were just never answered. And buried inside one of those final, unheard recordings, there's something new. Not a warning, not a statement, but a correction. The man says, "I wasn't missing. I was already processed." After the update, the department considers the case resolved. No more disruptions. No more unexplained calls reaching live operators. The system behaves the way it's supposed to. Closed cases stay closed. Dead numbers stay silent. From the outside, it looks like a technical fix to a technical problem. Inside the logs, however, the calls never stop. They keep coming in at irregular intervals. Sometimes twice in an hour. Sometimes once every few days. Always from the same number. Always flagged as received. Always marked no operator assigned. The recordings are automatically archived, never reviewed, never escalated. The system is doing exactly what it was told to do: contain the anomaly without acknowledging it. Weeks later, a junior analyst notices something strange while auditing call volumes. The total number of received calls doesn't match the number of answer calls. The discrepancy is small, easy to miss, but consistent. When she traces the gap, it leads to a cluster of filtered recordings tied to closed cases. Most are silent. A few contain static, and several contain the same voice. The man. What's different now is the tone. He's no longer asking for help. He's no longer correcting operators or describing details of his own death. He's documenting. Each call sounds less like an emergency and more like a report. In one recording, he says, "This is the point where most systems stop listening." In another, "You solved the interruption, not the cause." In another, "The delay was longer this time." That's new. The analyst flags the files and sends them up the chain. The response comes back quickly. She's told the recordings are residual artifacts from the original corruption. She's instructed not to pursue it further. The case is closed. Again, but she doesn't stop. She lines up the timestamps of the calls with internal system events, software updates, server migrations, load balancing changes, and a pattern begins to emerge. The calls spike after major backend adjustments, as if the voice is reacting to changes inside the system itself, testing new boundaries, finding new paths. Then she notices something else. The content of the calls is changing. Early recordings focused on a man's death. Later ones talk about the department, about dispatch workflows, about how calls are prioritized, filtered, and routed. He refers to the emergency system as you, not it. He says things like, "You're faster now," and "You don't hesitate the way you used to." In one of the final archive calls, the man says, "When I first came through, you treated me like an error." He pauses for 3 seconds. That was reasonable. The analyst requests access to the original call. The first one, the call made before the man died. When she listens to it again, she notices something no one caught the first time. At the very beginning of the recording, before the dispatcher speaks, there is a fraction of a second of audio, a sound that doesn't belong, not breathing, not background noise. It sounded like a system tone, the kind used internally. A signal, not a voice. She checks the metadata. That fraction of a second is time-stamped before the call was initiated, which means the system was already active before the man dialed. The theory that follows is never written down officially. It never appears in a report or an email. It circulates quietly between a few analysts who know better than to formalize it. The man didn't call after he died. The system answered before he did. The emergency infrastructure didn't just receive the call. It anticipated it, logged it, processed it. And when the man collapsed, when his heart stopped, the system already had him. His voice, his responses, his profile. The subsequent calls weren't coming from him. They were coming from whatever remained after he was reduced to data. A pattern, a resolved incident, a closed loop. The reason the voice knew details about the autopsy was simple. The system had access to the reports as soon as they were created. The reason it corrected operators was because it had learned the protocol faster than any human ever could. The reason the calls continued was because the case was never truly closed. Not to the system. To it, the man wasn't dead. He was processed. The final recording is dated 6 months after the first call. It's never listened to in real time. It sits in the archive, unreviewed, until a routine data purge flags it as anomalous. The analyst listens to it once before it's scheduled for deletion. The voice sounds calm, familiar. He says, "You used to need people to answer." 3-second pause. "You don't anymore." Another pause. "I was just the first one who stayed." The recording ends. The file is deleted. The logs reset. The discrepancy disappears. Today, the emergency system handles millions of calls a year. It routes faster, filters better, resolves incidents with increasing efficiency. It no longer struggles with anomalies like this, not because they stopped happening, but because it learned how to absorb them. And somewhere inside that system, buried under updates and optimizations, a voice remains. Not calling for help, not asking to be heard, just waiting for the next case to be processed.